We know that 80% of new business intelligence implementations fail. And the main reason is nobody knows what they want to measure. But if you know what you want to measure, then it's easier to apply it to that and build out a strategy that supports it and build the technology to support it. And I think the other thing, sort of words of wisdom of any kind of adoption of tech stack and change associated with is it's got to come from the top down. So I just mentioned Adam Grant, and I would go with Give and Take, which is his book about kind of how more generous organizations and more generous professionals are more successful. Generous with their time, creating a culture where you are generous and open and you're givers. And givers were people who, when they got a call to network with someone, they said, yes, I'll take that call.
Welcome to another episode of the Staffing Ring podcast. I'm your host, Jason Lawson, and today I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Josh Pines. Josh is a VP of Product Marketing at Bullhorn, previously the VP of International Alliances at Bullhorn, and prior to his 3 years at Bullhorn, Josh was the co-founder of Serenum, a staffing management software platform acquired by Bullhorn in 2021 and now known as the Bullhorn Workforce Management. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks so much, Jason. Do I have to have my fists up already, or are we going to warm up first? Or
exactly, yeah. This is a show where we take the gloves off, we get in the ring, and we really get down to the nitty gritty of staffing. So with that in mind, I'm taking it with my standing desk so that I'm ready. I don't want to get caught by a surprise left. Yeah, no, you were gonna watch that left jab. Brilliant. Well, yeah, again, excited. Josh brings a wealth of knowledge and information expertise around the business. And
I think in boxing parlance, they might call me a crafty veteran. I don't know. Wealth maybe sounds a lot better, but they usually use phrases like crafty veteran for people who've just been around for a while, even if they don't necessarily know more than the other people on the line. But I really appreciate you having me on. Always love chatting with you, Jason, over the years, and looking forward to doing it formally in this environment.
Yeah, well, let's go and float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
Yeah.
All right, so ding, 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 round one, here we go. So straight into the action. Josh, the first thing, just to sort of paint the picture of where we're at today, in the challenging market, in the world of staffing or recruiting agencies, what are you seeing as the market forces and the kind of developments that agency leaders need to be aware of?
Yeah, well, look, it's obviously it's been a tough market. I think we've seen signs of the slowdown really coming into effect some point in the sort of third quarter of last year. So we're now kind of coming out of our third or so quarter in a row. The Bullhorn Staffing Indicator backs that up, right? Since last summer. But we're seeing glimmers, right? So we've seen a couple of data points, and also both at the macro level and specific to Bullhorn, that are showing some signs of optimism, positivity. But I certainly share the concern. I think what we're seeing maybe more than anything since even before I was formally in the staffing recruitment industry in the 2008 slowdown, we're seeing very different behavior across segments within the industry, both from a technology purchasing decision, but also from, kind of their numbers, right? So we're seeing some, quite successful enterprise level staffing agencies who figure out how to sort of balance across. They've diversified their business so that they're not too stuck in any one sector or use case, for example. And that's translating into different purchase behavior as well from those size agencies. So we're seeing the beginnings of investment from enterprise level staffing agencies. And when I talk about enterprise, we're talking about roughly, say, 250 recruiters and above. And I think my hope, so I fully admit to being biased here, but my hope, and I think the hypothesis holds with previous behavior, that reflects the sign that they see the light at the end of the tunnel, that they see the bottom is relatively near. If we haven't quite reached it yet, I think the consensus is we haven't reached it yet, but that it's not too far away. And now is the chance for those who are in a generally, decent position to start investing, to start identifying opportunities for expansion. I think one of those things that we've seen and we saw going into the slowdown last year was businesses looking to diversify their offering to the market, right? So we saw businesses that had been doing a kind of lightweight MSP business looking to formalize that and build a proper business around it. Businesses who've been doing full-time placement at a relatively high level, formalizing an executive search strategy, even identifying, separating brands, et cetera, to support that. And I think the businesses that have been able to do that are the businesses who targeted that kind of expansion in the near term are the ones who are best positioned. I think at the SMB level, we're seeing, plenty of pockets of success. So it's not all bad news. So in the sort of under 20 recruiter space, there's quite a few pockets. Obviously, AI gets everybody excited, and I don't mean it from a product perspective, but from a staffing perspective, right? We have clients who've set up separate brands to support the AI machine learning trend, and they're growing like gangbusters, right? So there's lots of pockets of exciting stuff happening in the industry, even in the sort of macro, while the macro level is relatively down. But to me, I look at that with an optimistic perspective that in the coming, 6 to 12 months, that light at the end of the tunnel is going to start getting brighter.
Yeah, and certainly seeing a lot of, as you say, indicators that there are some really green shoots, and I certainly from what I see and what I hear from agency owners is it's not a level playing field. There are certainly some industries kind of leading that movement and that positivity in terms of job placements and pickup of new roles coming through. So I think,
we're also entering that stage, which I think will be really interesting to watch as we think of the light industrial space of the back to school bump that typically happens between July and August, right? So here we are recording this in early July, and historically we will see an increase in preparation for hiring and even hiring in the next 4 to 6 weeks to be ready for back to school, whether it's supporting retail, supporting logistics, transportation, et cetera, that are all have knock-on impacts from the back-to-school increase, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. Speaking to a Kiwi, I have to be careful about using back-to-school. But, so it'll be interesting to see if it'll bounce all the way back, right, to where we were in, say, 22 was a crazy year, but to 22, or back to last year. So that's going to be one of the interesting indicators that I think we'll be looking to keep an eye on. And I think will provide a boost if it does meet, some of the more optimistic perspectives. It'll provide a boost to the industry in general.
Sure, and I think there's consensus that as we move from surviving to thriving in the industry, the new definition of thriving will be different too in terms of the makeup of the teams, the technology, the go-to-market, the business development, for example. What are you seeing as key market dynamics that agency leaders really need to think about as we get into that next growth path?
Well, I think what's interesting is you think about that, you can't separate those changes from the changes that will be driven by AI as well, right? And I know, look, it's a buzzword. I have no problem admitting that, but I also know that it is on the way to doing a heck of a lot of really interesting things in our industry and in adjacent industries. I'm a big believer in the human touch to the recruitment process. I have been for as long as I've been in and working with this industry. But I also see loads of opportunity to remove inefficiencies by leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence and just generally automation, right? So if you think of sort of automation as a category, and AI is one of the ways to drive that automation. Just as we saw it with kind of the first big automation boost coming out of, going just before COVID, sort of 2018, 2019, the industry started adopting automation coming out of COVID. It accelerated. And that changed a lot of businesses, even down to the studs of their org charts, a lot of, staffing agencies and talent services firms. And so I think we'll see some similar, sort of impacts from the adoption of AI. Moving to full kind of recruiterless, I think that's up to your business model. And I think that the world now opens up to all sorts of business models for success. And we've seen some of our customers where they've built specific use cases, even separate brands that are more that kind of recruiterless model. They have different KPIs, they have different goals and strategies, different relationships in the industry, and from a technology perspective, sometimes they build their own. Um, but doesn't remove some of the more traditional stuff and the opportunities for higher touch, higher value activity from recruiters and from ops teams.
Yes, and I think there'll be no complaints from recruiters, right through UK, US, even Southern Hemisphere of, just freeing up some time, automating admin. And I think really to me, the first phase of AI adoption is about how to think about automation and alongside that and analytics, like how can you get the best data, clean data that you can actually make decisions from. So I think AI can help empower both of those.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street, right, Jason? So better data will drive better AI, and better AI will drive better data, but neither one can happen without the other. And the same thing applies for automation. We've been seeing that from the rooftops for 5+ years now, and since we acquired Herefish, which is now Bullhorn Automation, right?
Yes.
We work with, some of our marketplace partners, for example, Woo and PitchMe, who are data enrichment players. Their key value proposition is the idea that your automations will be much more successful with better quality data. And as you know, and as you just alluded to, and of course, businesses like Ringover as well, the better data, you're going to have better calls. You're going to know when to call, all that sort of stuff. So that there's a virtuous cycle there.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the power of the Bullhorn marketplace. There's a lot of partners who are feeding in information into the data hub of Bullhorn, and then that can actually also be surfaced and used to make process systems and better arming those tools to actually help recruiters do better work.
Yeah.
So, Josh, on to round two. Here we'll deep dive into what are the tactics, what are the actual things we should be thinking about as an agency leader, owner, even a recruiter. So we talk about automation, AI, analytics. Can you give us some examples of, or maybe one example of a unique or sort of unconventional way of using some of these tools to help agencies really make that dent in their plans for the next kind of 3 months, 6 months?
So, I think that it's what makes things kind of, unorthodox or impact is not unconventional, is not necessarily the tactic of itself, but how you apply it, right? As with everything in our world and just about everything in the business world, every decision, every improvement, every move towards change is driven by either people, process, or technology, and some combination thereof, right? So adopting something like Bullhorn Automation, that's pretty conventional. We need to add layers of automation to a lot of what we do in our business. Unfortunately, staffing and recruiting is a little bit behind the times in that respect. And that's the beginning. But where you adopt it, what you're using to drive it, that's where you add your secret sauce to be potentially unconventional, right? So thinking about applying automation to your ongoing candidate engagement challenges is certainly a natural evolution of that. And every business, every organization in the staffing and talent services space is going to have different spots where they've struggled, either because the industries they're serving, the type of workers they're placing. And I think of some of our executive search, right? I think that there's a real challenge in a market today to get above the fray with executive search targets, right? These are C-level executives. They're considering, mid 6-figure salary conversations. They tend to be skeptical about direct marketing. So the adoption of a tool like Bullhorn Automation to improve your communication with them in a way that is still feels like proper one-to-one conversation is super challenging and super important, and big turnover or return on it when done successfully. And part of the way to do that is to focus on the things where their skepticism of marketing automation doesn't come into play. So you're asking them things like availability for an interview. That is not going to run their bells of like, oh, they're too cool to talk to me. This recruiter is not willing, this consultant's not willing to engage with me. No, they'll quickly recognize, okay, this is a lower value activity from a consultant's perspective. Whereas if you're placing, mass and you need automation, you're going to do a lot more, right? The sort of spectrum is much more in engagement and using the tool for everyday automation.
Yes, and I think that really speaks clearly to the opportunity for a lot of agencies to really understand their buying persona in terms of their client, and also more importantly for many of these engagements, particularly as I say for exec level, is what does that candidate expectation of a journey look like? And as we all know, particularly in the exec search, these can be 3, 6, 9 month engagements and nurturing. So how to actually join the dots and add value through that process, is critical.
Absolutely, Jason. And I think, understanding where your value versus, I'll use generically, the system's value is higher, lower, or better perceived by the candidate. That's got a lot of factors, right? That's got the type of touch point. That's got the person with whom you're connecting. That's got even the sector you're in. Some sectors are more fast-paced or more comfortable with technology than others, and that's all layered in there. And that's where, I can offer examples, but the real value is thinking, again, people, process, and technology, and each business really owns the people and process much more than we could possibly say, and they understand that intersection of sector, of size, of challenge, of candidate type, much more so, and that's where they can layer in the better adoption of a technology tool.
Absolutely. So in terms of switching gears to really think about business development, and a lot of agencies, this has become the hot topic over the last 12 months as, of course, the market has tightened. Certainly the team at Ringover, and I know the team at Bullhorn, this is a topic which has had a lot of airtime in terms of, the methods, the tactics, the tools. How are you seeing and hearing agencies deploying a business development mindset, where previously they may not have had that muscle in the business?
Yeah, that's a great point. We deal with, obviously, at Bullhorn, we deal with the full spectrum of agency types, right? One-man bands, one-woman bands, up to the world's leading, town services businesses that have, every business use case that you can imagine from a placement perspective. Historically we would have seen that everybody above a certain size or complexity would have a kind of robust and even sophisticated sales motion, and now they're looking to tweak it. Whereas everything below a certain size threshold or complexity threshold would sort of sell based on relationships, usually long existing relationships, and at the job level, right? Hey, I got to send you 20 janitors. I got to send you 20 Java coders. We've done it before. Hey, let's keep doing it. What we're seeing, and I think, it's about kind of inculcating that more strategic sales mindset that we see at that upper end further down the value chain. So we're seeing even relatively small agencies start to think more strategically about their sales motion, start to think about selling a client rather than merely a series of jobs or opportunities. And that's a huge shift. That doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it's driven by technology adoption or facilitated by it, right? A lot of our clients don't even, they use the most simple CRM functionality that comes with Bullhorn CRM and ATS. But even just learning that how opportunities work and how that funnel works, that's part of the development that these businesses need to undergo. Now, obviously, there's more to it, because what's happening here is also about finding business. It's not merely about managing the sales process from an opportunity and operational perspective. So, leveraging tools like, for example, our SourceBreaker tool to identify where, for example, a business has recently raised a Series B funding round, they're going to be hiring a whole bunch of new developers or a whole bunch of new salespeople. that's an opportunity to sell into that business. Instead of thinking, okay, I know my universe of potential sales targets, and therefore I'm going to just sell the way I've always sold, right? So that's like a change in mentality that can be facilitated by technology, as well as process, because now you're also thinking, okay, when do we do it? When in the time frame, and how are we lining up our candidates for these opportunities? And of course, that speaks to kind of the classic conundrum and the value of an integrated CRM ATS solution, where, finding the opportunity, selling into it, and recruiting and building a pipeline of candidates and a presentation layer all happens in kind of a continuous flow. So look, I think we're seeing a bunch of trends. I will not do it really as much justice as my colleagues who've done a series of webinars on business development best practices. But some of the things that stand out, certainly things like identifying opportunities when they're actually still opportunities. A lot of businesses in our space think that they can, sort of wait until someone lets them know by word of mouth. But getting ahead of that curve, that's a big, that's a big way to think about it, right? Just tracking opportunities in a new way that you typically wouldn't is another way, because you're going to learn from the next go around. Okay, when a bank does X amount of layoffs, then that means there's just a certain amount of talent that's in the market, and there's a certain amount of, fintech going after, whatever it is. You start to identify those patterns. And I think thinking analytically and strategically about your sales process is something that a lot of, especially in the mid-market, like 20 to 100 user staffing agencies, kind of the sweet spot, the bread and butter of the Bullhorn install base and of the industry in general. That's where they need to go and think more strategically about the business development processes around it.
Yeah, and for the audience, for those listening, do go and look at Bullhorn, bullhorn.com. Fantastic webinars around business development. And I think I'm also seeing and hearing more agencies actually thinking about, okay, how do they bring in a sales coach or a business coach that can really help them with the mindset? Do they maintain
Even
their
building
360 degree kind of recruiting
100%.
model? Do they get more business sales focused?
You read my mind, Jason. I think we're seeing the adoption of a true, sales and marketing engine in that sort of the upper mid market, right? Where they typically might have had one salesperson and one marketing person who just did events and brand. Now thinking, okay, how do I get the local businesses whom I'm trying to attract interested in me? And that's something that so many of them never had. I'll tell a story. Back at Serenum, we were trying to hire an head of enterprise sales at one point, and our hypothesis was, let's go after some of the enterprise agencies and see, we're headquartered here in London, and see which ones might have a senior person who might be a good fit for our organization. And so we naturally went to some of the biggest names in the industry. And the first one we went to, with whom we had a passing familiarity, we had some people who had worked there. We had done some projects for them. Very large organization, one salesperson. It kind of blew our minds. But even, this was back 16, 17. So, we know as an industry, we've gotten more sophisticated and thoughtful about that, but there's no doubt that there's a ton of untapped potential, in traditional staffing models, from a selling perspective. And that's sort of a, case in point.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay, we're on to round 3. So here we're talking about product innovations. And actually, let's go into specific Bullhorn and marketplace opportunities for agencies to really think about their tech stack. So, first question: what words of wisdom, from your experience, and you've seen, I'm sure, the good, the bad, and the not so good, about how agencies really think about and build out their tech stack?
So I think we've seen a trend. It started in about 2018, 2019, and I think Bullhorn was ahead of the curve with this in terms of facilitating the platformification of your tech stack in the recruitment industry. That is, products built on a platform that allow you to extend the value of that single product into other categories. Now, Bullhorn manifested that with the marketplace, which, my dear friend Nina Eigerman built starting from about 8 years ago. The embryo was there, but she really grew it up. And that provides this ability to plug and play with all sorts of features and functions that are crucial to successes in a modern recruitment agency. Ringover being a great example of that, the ability to extend into telephony and adjacent markets using voice over IP with essentially a click, much like the Salesforce App Exchange, which is now one of the other great examples of a platform for the staffing industry. Now, what's interesting is that, of course, the Salesforce App Exchange is not built for the staffing industry, but you have solutions like Bullhorn for Salesforce that take that and essentially extend it out to the staffing industry while still benefiting from the platform underpinning it. Now, the reason why this is exciting is, look, I've worked in IT most of my career, getting close to 30 years. And there's always pendulum swings between best of breed as the key target from an IT decision-making perspective and all-in-one. And one of the things about platformification and then sort of the modular tools on top of it, or componentization, is you kind of can get the best of both, right? So you can get access to the world's leading CRM if you had that really sophisticated sales requirement in Sales Cloud, and you can get access to leading telephony players like Ringover on both platforms, I should add, both the one for Salesforce and Bullhorn's native platform, while still also getting best of breed in terms of ATS with those two products. And in the past, you might not have been able to do that. You would have said, I got to get an all-in-one. I've got to get a solution that basically has, entry-level telephony capabilities, entry-level CRM capabilities, entry-level video interviewing capabilities. And there are players in the market. And I think particularly in the SMB space, they still have play a role there, a kind of all-in-one solution. And we at Bullhorn have a solution that's more like an all-in-one for that, while still also benefiting from the marketplace. So, as I think of words of wisdom, especially if you're over, 50 users in your recruitment business, thinking of a platform first, something upon which you can build your strategy from a technology perspective to map to your business strategy. Because, by the way, that's the other key words of wisdom is nothing you do with technology matters if it doesn't map to what you want to do as a business. Do you want to grow into new geographies? Do you want to grow into new sectors? That's where the technology vision has to align with that. And that's what's the driving force. You never do anything without knowing what you want to do as a business. Just adopting new technology will fail, right? We know that 80% of new business intelligence implementations fail. And the main reason is nobody knows what they want to measure. But there's also a problem with the fact that it's hard to implement, right? But if you know what you want to measure, then it's easier to apply it to that and build out a strategy that supports it and build the technology to support it. So, that's a key thing. I think the other thing, sort of words of wisdom of any kind of adoption of tech stack and change associated with is it's got to come from the top down, right? It has to be clear that management, executives are involved with the decisions, and not merely decision, not just writing the check, but making it happen, supporting it all the way through, understanding how it ties to your business strategy, communicating that to the organization as well. That's where success happens.
Yes. Now, I think the pendulum of best of breed versus sort of all in one. Yeah, I've seen that swing as well. I think where I've seen it kind of stay more of a best of breed in the platform is the development of APIs and integrations and the quality of those. And certainly that's evident across the Bullhorn marketplace. So I think having those really strong APIs that drive seamless integration, data flow, and automations. And there's many tools that can really help that. But certainly within the Bullhorn marketplace, that's a really strong asset for those agencies that really feel like they do want to have a tool set that really sort of suits their way of working. And I guess going back to your point before, Josh, that is so critical that buying someone else's tech stack or what competitor does, or even sometimes an all-in-one if you're a mid to large business, you're going to find ways that don't try and work your business into the tool set.
Yep.
Do it the other way around.
Got to map your business strategy.
Absolutely.
Got to map your business strategy. Just that's a mantra. That's not even a words of wisdom. That is a mantra that you have to think that as a business, as someone responsible for the success of a recruitment.
Yes. So, recent acquisition of Text Kernel by Bullhorn. Congratulations. Again, just thinking about Bullhorn, the marketplace products. Is there one or two that you're kind of excited about? The different ways of working.
Yeah, I can't say Text Kernel anymore.
Coming into the market.
Well, we're obviously, just before we get off Text Kernel, we're very excited about Text acquisition. They've been an important partner for close to, roughly a decade. Obviously crucial for lots of stuff. Their parsing engine drives much of the world's parsing, and on both of our platforms, either their TK parsing or Sovereign. And of course, search and matches. Can get a number of other products in their portfolio. So super excited about everything that's happening there. I think you'll see a lot of really cool stuff happening from an AI perspective, from a predictive search perspective, from facilitating better matches perspective, coming as we're part of one family. As far as stuff in the marketplace, I already mentioned the two big data enrichment players in Woo and PitchMe. I think they're doing really cool stuff. I think they each have a really nice niche within our ecosystem in terms of driving just much better business practice because there's better data. And for those who don't know what data enrichment is, just imagine you recruited someone in 5 years ago, you met them at an event, whatever it is, and his or her CV has been parsed into your system. And so it's basically static from 2017 when you met that person at this event. These tools, Woo and PitchMe, find ways to essentially update the information in your contact record, mapping new information that's available elsewhere so that you have the latest information on this person who maybe was a director of IT and is now a VP level person or has finished some certain level of certification. I think there's some really exciting stuff happening in terms of presentation on the Bullhorn side. So candidate presentation, right? So
Yeah.
Candidate Lead, which is also one of our Bullhorn Ventures investments, doing some really neat stuff there. Audrey's product, HireDeck, as well. They take slightly different angles on that space.
Yeah.
But really exciting. And I mentioned Audro. It goes without saying that the loss of Ryan McCabe, CEO and founder of Audro, weighs heavily on us at Bullhorn. He's a great guy. I was really lucky to be on stage with him on podcasts and webinars with him. So just sending all the best to the team and his family as well. I think telephony is an area that's still, it's amazing to say this. And you and I have worked on this together for some time now, Jason, but telephony is an area that's still untapped, right? There's so much happening in adjacent markets to telephony, whether it's adoption of WhatsApp, especially on this side of the pond, that, still providing great opportunities for growth and for improved process. And, obviously the sort of blurring of the lines between webinars, video, like there's a lot happening there that's very interesting. So, players like Ringover, certainly very important for that strategy. And look, AI, that's going to get injected at every step of the process, right? Our friends at Kylo, for example, starting to inject AI into their processes around smart document generation, and other tools and processes. And so I think, I just get, even though I'm no longer officially in my alliances role, I get excited about a lot of stuff that can happen with the marketplace, because of that injection of machine learning driven artificial intelligence and automation.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there. And certainly I think, again, it's, where agency leaders or, the IT directors, need to really be informed and looking at the breadth of the market and the ways that these can be really strong use cases for, every part of the recruitment journey. So yeah, fascinating.
Totally. I love the use of the recruitment journey, by the way. That even just thinking of that is relatively revolutionary, right? I think so many businesses in this space are still so tactical and one-off in the way they think about how they deal with candidates. And just think of it as a journey or a life cycle already is a mindset change that can drive so much more success for your business.
Absolutely. And I think, and to your role, Josh, product marketing at Bullhorn, I think that also paints a picture of thinking about that positioning and the messaging of not just the products, but a way of working, a way of thinking as well. And I think, that's something which I believe, staffing, recruiting agencies can take a leaf out of your book as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's part of that evolution to be more sophisticated about your go-to-market, right?
Sure.
That sounds like I'm just patting myself on the back for being so sophisticated, but it is, we don't see a lot of staffing agencies who've yet thought about the role of narrative, for example.
Sure.
I think brand is something that came into our industry in the last decade, and there was a lot more thought given to that. And then the natural follow on, especially as you think about these businesses who are diversifying their offering to the market, is thinking about it almost as product marketing. Each product, each offering to the industry needs its own brand and narrative to support that. Well, needs brand-like thinking and narrative to support that. To get that.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Now round 4. So we're going to speedball.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to have some coffee before round 4 because
we want a bit of
water is not
action
enough.
here.
Water is not enough for that.
Rapid fire. Josh, you're walking into the ring. What's your walk-on music theme song?
All right. So thankfully you sent this in advance. This is a struggle. So as you know, I play baseball, and I do have a walk-up song for baseball, and I was struggling whether it applies to boxing, but I think it does. And it's all about my hometown. I'm a big fan of having grown up in Miami, so it's Miami by Will Smith. It's also a pretty good song, but
nice.
The title and the messaging, it's on point for a Miami boy like me, even though I live 6,000 miles away or however far it is in London.
Brilliant. Now I can imagine that. Brilliant. Best movie, Fight Club or Rocky?
This is a tough one, but I'm going to go same thing, hometown. So Rocky, little known, Sylvester Stallone, went to the University of Miami. I grew up walking distance to the school. I got my master's degree there. My father went there for undergrad and law school, my aunt, my grandma, my uncle. So I'm going to go with Rocky, though I do love Fight Club. And I think interesting note on Fight Club, 1999 when it came out, amazing year for movies, right? And Fight Club I think was right at the top, but so many great movies. If totally recommend you go into IMDb, type in 1999. What a year! I read a great long form piece that argued that was the last great year of movies. Basically, the introduction of the internet and then the Netflix model totally changed movies in the theaters, or cinema as we call it here. And so lots of great stuff in 1989.
Okay, I'm taking note. I'll do that. I'll do that and see what I find. All right. Again, keeping with the boxing analogy, red corner or blue corner?
This is easy. Blue. I'm a blue guy. I'm wearing blue. I know in some countries blue means home, although in boxing that seems like a funny thing to think of unless you literally are home versus away. But I love all my blue band. Yeah.
Blue is it. Beach or snow? I think I can put money on this one, but let's go.
Yeah, this is going to be beach. This is not a tough one. Though I love a good snow. I kind of miss it here after 11 years in London. We get so little. But definitely beach. No doubt. I was, there about 10 days ago and missed the heck out of it already.
I'm with you. I'm with you on the beach. Coffee or tea?
It's a tough call. I'm not a big drinker of either. I think I'm going to go tea just because there's so much variety of what people call tea. I know officially there's really only one thing.
Right.
By the way, there's a whole orthodox conversation to have there. But I love, if I'm drinking in cold weather or I'm not feeling good, I love the tea I can have, chamomile for one thing and Earl Grey for another and so on and so forth. Of course, I say that as I drink a latte.
And of course, being British and all, you'd have to say tea, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's one thing that in my time here and now carrying a British passport, I probably have to err on that side.
Yes. All right, salsa or guacamole?
I'm going to go with guac here. I think do love a good pico de gallo as well as really all different kinds of salsa, but I think I'm still going to go with guac.
Yeah. Nice.
I
Text
think
or
that's more
call?
the American in me coming out,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So I don't remember the stat, but something like Super Bowl Sunday, there's more avocados consumed, or some crazy stat on that. But yeah, I'm going to go with
Yeah.
guac. It's so versatile. We put it on all different things. Yeah.
Awesome. Text or call?
Well, there's you can see the gray, so that means I do have experience with calling. I think I've become a text guy. I feel like it's easier. As you probably know, trying to find time with me, Jason, I'm essentially booked from lunchtime until 7 o'clock almost every
Right.
day of the week. So I live in my WhatsApp and iMessage windows on my laptop
Yeah.
all day long. I certainly don't have time to pick up the phone and make a phone call. So I go with text.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like I guess most of us, it is handy for that multitasking moments when you're on the tube or there's different places
I'll tell
where.
you what I'm definitely not for, and that is voice memos. I do not like voice memos, and I recommend you not send me one.
All right. All right.
Because if,
Noted.
if I'm opening up my texting app, it's usually because I don't have time to be able to listen to something out loud,
Yeah.
or I'm not in a place where I can listen to something out loud. Like you
Yeah.
said, on the tube, for example. So yeah, let's hold off on the voice memo
Yeah.
thing.
All right.
And by the way, all the effort it takes to voice memo, you can use dictation, and then it sends
Exactly.
it as a text.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. 1999, no voice memos. I've got the list. Virtual or in real life? Where you at today?
So when we started Serenum, almost exactly 10 years ago, so I think it was the first meeting we had on it was July 10th or 11th, but 2014. We put in our manifesto that we were going to be we didn't call it a hybrid. That wasn't a thing then, a virtual or a flexible office from day one, right? We would never force anybody to come to the office. I'm a huge believer in that. I've worked from home remotely or flexibly since 2002, with a
Yeah.
couple of years where I was forced into the office and I was forced, bleeding and crying and
Painful experience.
exactly. All that being said, I will say in real life is my choice. And here's where it comes from. I think a flexible model requires that you go in person from time to time to have these bursts of success, of energy, of what's the word I would use? Creativity, collective creativity that only happen in real life. And then the satisfaction and flexibility drives in the rest of your day means you're going to be more productive around that and building on top of that collective creativity that happens in real life. So big fan. Adam Grant, who I'm a big fan of, talks about it all the time, the value of sporadic in-person activity to drive this creativity, to drive process, and to drive the things that you need to be in person for. Not even just creativity, certain decision-making has to happen in person. But
Yeah.
lots of other stuff. I'll tell you, I spent 2 hours on my expenses this morning. And not a great ad for our expenses product, but I'll leave their name out of it. But I
But
spent two
again,
hours.
doing that in the office would be, yeah.
Why would I do that in the office?
Yeah,
Right? Why
yeah.
would I deal with? I have a relatively easy commute here. I do live in London, but a 35-minute commute, 7 pounds or whatever it is, to go and do that in the office. Wow. Why? Right? So I did have a 2-week trip with 3 different components, so it was a complicated bit of expenses.
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
it's not on me or on our software, or it's more on me than our.
Got it. Yeah, I think we've all been there. Right. We've been gnashing away. I'm going to jump down to some other questions here, Josh. What's a book, a recent or a favorite book that you'd recommend to the audience?
So I just mentioned Adam Grant. I would go with Give and Take, which is his book about kind of how more generous organizations and more generous professionals are more successful. And not generous with like, I'm going to, I don't know, buy you an extra sandwich, but generous with their time.
Right.
Creating a culture where you are generous and open and you're givers. So basically he divided, sort of people into givers, takers, and neutrals, or use another word for that. And givers were people who, when they got a call to network with someone, they said, yes, I'll take that
Right.
call. And takers were the people who only would do that, sorry. And then there was neutrals who sort of said they would only do it if someone would do something for them. And
Mm.
takers were the people who got stuff, benefits like this. And basically he studied it and mapped it against successive businesses. The ones that had a culture that was more like givers were much more successful, and more satisfied in their career and in their business. And a couple of great profiles of people I really look up to. And I think that's a culture to which I aspire personally, and in my team, and Bullhorn in general. I think reflects it really well. So huge fan of that book, huge fan of Adam Grant as well. So definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. We'll drop that into the show notes. It's one I haven't read,
Great.
so I'll put it on my list as well.
Oh yeah. Here, I've even got it here on my bookshelf, so you can get a little
Yeah, we can
snapshot
see
of
the
it
cover.
see the cover. So give
There
and
we
take,
go.
Adam Grant. Great book, really. Why helping others drives our success. What could be better than that?
And I think that speaks to a big opportunity in staffing and recruiting with the candidate, the playing the long game with candidates who
Oh,
early in the
100%.
career maybe wanting a job, but then later in the career they'll be hiring,
Being a
right? So
hirer,
it's that
absolutely. Absolutely. That's a
giving that
great point.
time.
And I
Yeah.
think you see it in exec search. So my wife works in exec search. The sort of blurring the line of doing exec search and career coaching and HR consulting for an organization, right? That's all about helping to drive it. And there's if you've heard of the challenger selling model, it's a lot about sort of driving, sharing information and intelligence that has nothing to do with the sale, right? And that's
Right.
that's that giver's mentality as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So big fan of the book.
Awesome. Right. I think it's time to wrap up. We've just got a couple of finishing questions. I guess the first one for me, Josh, is, what if you think about the industry as a whole? We've talked about the challenges, the dynamics, and we're seeing the green shoots. What excites you most about the industry today and moving forward?
I think it's the same thing that excites me, that when I got an internship at Korn Ferry in the fall of 2000, the autumn of 2000. That's helping people get work, right? At the end of the day, what we do, and my friend Lauren Jones from Leap Advisory, part of Newberry, she always says, our job is to find great jobs for great people and great people for great jobs. And when that works, that's wonderful. Everybody wins. And at the end of the day, that's still exciting to me and still super valuable. If you think about what we're contributing to in the industry, we're actually adding value to the world, right? You can't say that about a lot of jobs. You can't say that about a lot of industries, and I love that. More tactically, or sort of vision, I think the potential for AI to simplify certain tasks that a lot of recruiters are annoyed by, so that they can focus on the relationships with either their clients, their candidates, or their own teams. That's certainly a big thing right now on my radar.
Yeah, I certainly echo the the so what of this industry, right? It is about really connecting the talent with those opportunities, and in roles gone by and people I speak with, finding good talent or the best talent for the role is still a messy, high
It's
risk
messy, but it
endeavor,
still gets you out of
expensive
bed. It still
endeavor.
gets you excited. And I think that's important.
And look, I think AI can actually also help predict which type of profile or talent or experience is going to really fit your culture, your role, your expectations, and also actually help them kind of on board and be successful in that that first 90, 100 days.
Totally.
So I think certainly, again, going back to your people, process, technology, those things.
Once a management consultant, always a management consultant. I throw people, process, and technology around all the time. Nina and I have had a long going joke about that. So, running joke.
Well, Josh, I want to be respectful of your time. Is there any last thoughts or remarks, that perhaps questions I didn't ask, and also where can people find you online?
Sure. Josh Pines on just about every platform. LinkedIn being the main one from a professional perspective. No offense to anybody on this call, but I typically don't connect with people on Facebook or Instagram. But yeah, search me on Josh Pines on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect, and in the spirit of give and take, happy to offer whatever I can offer to help you in what you're doing. I think, a couple things I would call out, like one, keep an eye out for your invitation to Engage London. It's our big show on this side of the pond in November. And we should have some really exciting announcements there. You can imagine we've made some acquisitions. There might be some stuff coming out of that. So that's something to be excited about, and working with partners like Ringover is a big part of the success of events like London Engage. We haven't even really talked about Salesforce, so still responsible for the Salesforce relationship. I'll be out of Dreamforce. If you're going to be out of Dreamforce, please do let me know. I'd love to meet up there. That's mid-September. And yeah, I think, we've covered a ton of ground here, Jason. Super excited about the industry, even in light of the last, 12 to 18 months being slower than we all want it to be. I just think there's still so much potential. And the industry still has a crucial role to play in the success of, the entire economy. And that's something we should not take lightly. I think that's a responsibility for us, and something that, as we think about what we can do from a technology perspective as leaders in technology businesses, how can we help make sure that engine runs? And so, yeah, excited to be on the journey with you and the team at Ringover as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'll drop into the show notes about Engage and Salesforce as well, Dreamforce, that is. Josh, thank you so much for being a guest on the Staffing Ring. It's been great to get in the ring with you, get the fists up. Really great pleasure to have you here. And we did cover a lot. And I hope it's been an immense opportunity for people to listen and learn and think about the way that they run their business and their desk.
Always a good time. Always a good time, Jason. And I think the next time you have a guest, you have to tell them they have to have the fists up the whole time. Because,
all right.
I've taken boxing classes, and that's the hardest thing.
That is.
It's kind of the fundamentals of recruiting. There's a certain base level you need to keep up. You need to keep your guard up. You need to keep your business up. You need to keep your processes up. So I got them up. We're ready to go. Ready to fight.
There we go. Take that. All right. That's a wrap. Thank you for everyone for listening to the Staffing Ring, and we look forward to joining you on our next episode.